So we've already done a lesson on this. This is using a table to collect up or collate our data into what's called a frequency distribution table. And then we're going to find our mean, median, mode, range, interquartile range, all of those things, and plot the histogram and polygon. So you've all done it at least once. We're going to do it again together, and then I want you to practice the ones in between that we've left, finish things off in your booklet. Okay, so the first thing we need to do, we have a bunch of raw data here. We need to put them into the table below. First thing you should do is look through this big giant list here and try to find the smallest and the largest number that you can find in there. So the smallest number is there anything smaller than a 2? No, all right, 2 must be the smallest. The largest number, I think, is an 8. So that tells you that I need to start at 2 with my scores and count all the way through to 8 down here. So we're going to have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Now you have to very carefully go through and do your tally. This is a very important step because if you put something in the wrong spot, it's going to make all of the rest of your data and your graph wrong. So please be careful. So starting on the top row, I have a 6. So I'm going to put a tally line next to the 6. I have 2 3s. So I'm going to go 3, 3, 2 tally marks. 2, put a line next to 2. 4, 5, 4, 8, 5, 4, 8, 6, 7, 5, 6, 5, 8, 4, 7, 6, 2, 3, 6, and if it's a fifth one, you've got to cross over, and 3. All right, so hopefully you've done that very carefully and we have the same results there. Now we have to count how many tally marks we have because that makes the F for frequency column. So frequency is 2. Then 4, 4 again, 4 again, 5, 2, and 3. This one down the bottom says to sum the F. That's what that symbol means. It means to sum. So you get your calculators out and you add all of these numbers together to sum the F column. Very good, 24. Okay, the final column we need to help us find the mean. It's going to help us sum up all of our results. So to find the fx, they're next to each other, it means we have to times them. I'm timesing the frequency, which is 2, by the x, which see the x up here, is the score. So you're going 2 times 2 will make 4 for that first box. Then you do the next row. You're doing 3 times 4 makes 12. The next one's 4 times 4 makes 16. The next one, 5 times 4 makes 20. 6 times 5 makes 30. 7 times 2 is 14. 8 times 3 is 24. And this one down the bottom means I want to sum my fx. So calculators out again, and we add all of those numbers up. What do we get? That's what I got too. Well done. 120. Okay, so that's step 1. Now that we have all of that data, we need to find all of those things, range, mean, median, mode, Q1, Q3, and interquartile range. So let's start with the beginning. Finding the range. What does the range mean? What's the formula? Yes, up the back.
The highest.
Very good. So looking at my table, what is my highest number? Now that's talking about the scores. Yes, that's the highest number I can see in my table. It's the highest score. These are my scores. My highest score is 8 and my lowest score is 2. So it's going to be 8 take away 2, which does equal 6. All right, what is the definition of mode? Most, that's right. Mode is most. So again, let's look back at our table. That's right. The frequency. If we look in here, this tells us how many times each number occurred. This one, the 5, that number there is happening the most, and that is the number 6. 6 is happening 5 times. Okay, so the mode is also happens to be 6. The median. To find the median, I need to find the middle. If it was just a line of data, I could start crossing things off from the beginning and end, and I would find the middle. It's a bit harder to do that when it's in a table. So I use a little rule to help me find the middle position. What we do is we take the total number of scores in our table. There's 24 numbers in our table. I'm going to add 1 to that and divide by 2. So I just find a little blank piece of paper next to my table somewhere. I do this little calculation. 24 plus 1 over 2 makes 12.5. That is not the median, but it tells me the position of where the median is. Because it's 12.5, it means it's between the 12th and the 13th number. It's between them. Okay, so I'm going to count down. And you can count down your tally. That's one way to do it. Or you can add up your frequency as you go down. I'll count the tallies. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13 would be these 2 tally marks here, which are both in a score of 5. So the median is 5. All right. How do I find the mean? If it was perfectly symmetrical, that might have worked, but we have a different number of things happening in there. If we had done this, for this one it would have worked, but not for the right reasons. Okay, so you've got to be careful because it's not always the one that's like that. Okay, back to the mean. Who can tell me what the definition of mean is? Yes, someone else this time. It is the average. What's the formula for the average? You're not sure?
Oh, no.
You are?
Yeah.
That's right. But if we have a table, adding them all up is already done for us. This number here is all of my scores added up, the 120. And the 24 is how many scores that I have. So it's just dividing those 2 numbers in the bottom of my table. So it's 120 divided by 24, which makes 5, I think. Good. Okay, now for the quartiles, Q1 and Q3. All right, back to this little thing I was doing up here. When I found the median, I found the median was between the 12th and the 13th number. It was at 12.5. Now that means if you think of that big line of numbers that you might have had, in a line in the middle, there would be 12 numbers below and 12 numbers above that median. Okay? So if I want to find the middle of the 12 numbers that are below, I'm going to use my formula again. I'm going to go 12 plus 1 over 2 to find its position. Okay? 12 plus 1 over 2 is 6.5, which means I'm looking for the 6th and the 7th number because the median is between them. So let's come back up to our tallies. I want the 6th and 7th number. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 is there, and 7 would be in the 4. Because I'm in 2 different numbers, I'm going to have to average the 3 and the 4. So I write down 3 plus 4 over 2, which is equal to 3.5. Okay, the Q3, I'm going to have to find my 6 and 7 counting from the bottom backwards. So I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and 7. They're both in the same number again. They're both going to be in the 6. So the Q3 is 6. To find the interquartile range, the formula is Q3 minus Q1. That is just these last two numbers here that I found. Q3 is 6 minus Q1, which is 3.5. That is 2.5. The last thing to do, just make sure everyone's had a chance to write that down. The last thing to do is that we're going to graph that on the next page here, our frequency histogram and polygon. Now, the annoying thing for me is that I'm going to have to keep flicking backwards and forwards, but I think it's on the double page, you can see your results at the same time. Okay, so when we are looking at this table, the two things that we are sketching across the horizontal axes, we're going to put the score, the X. So these numbers here will go across the horizontal axes. On the vertical axis, we want the frequency. Not that one. That one's only ever used to help us find our mean, which we've already done. Okay, it's just the frequency, that one there. Okay, so let's set up our graph. Now, there's quite a few marks just for setting it up before you even draw anything. The first thing you should include is a title. So this was, when I read back at the question, it says, a student surveys her class to find out how many people are in their family. Okay, so what we've found out, this is a graph of the number of people in the family. Okay, now I'm going to set up the axes. So if you have a ruler, that is best. We want to draw a line across the bottom and a vertical line. Okay, across the bottom, as I said, we're going to do the score, which we can just use the symbol X in that bottom right-hand corner there. I put the little X, which is the symbol for the score. Because I need to draw those lovely little columns, I need some space to do that. So every second space, we're going to put a mark. And these are going to be our score numbers. Our numbers started at 2, so 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. And in my class, I told them to always have a spare, which I went to 9, because that means my polygon can come back down. Okay, on my vertical axis, this is going to be the frequency, F for frequency. When I look at my table, the highest frequency I see is 5. So for me to squish them all in, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that's a pretty tiny graph. That would be the highest point of my graph. So let's stretch it out a little bit and maybe use every second space again. Okay, you possibly could have stretched it even further than that, but at least it's not too squishy. Okay, so I have set up and labelled. Horizontal axis is numbered and labelled. Vertical axis is numbered and labelled, and I have a title. And I haven't drawn anything yet, but I still get marks for doing that. Okay, now for drawing. The histogram first. Looking at your table, the score of 2 had a frequency of 2. So the column is going to start with the 2 in the middle. We want one space in front of the 2 and one space after the 2. That will leave this gap. You should have a 1 square gap at the beginning, and that should always be there. It has to be there or you'll get marked down. Okay, so we need this gap here, then 2 spaces for the column. Now all the rest of the columns, there will be no gaps. There's no gaps between for histograms. If I was drawing a column graph, there would be gaps, but we're not doing that. So for 3, we have a frequency of 4. Has a frequency of 4. 5 has a frequency of 4. 6 has a frequency of 5. 7 has a frequency of 2. And 8 has a frequency of 3. Now, I've been very careful to try and keep those columns on the lines nice and neat. Your columns shouldn't be kind of bending over. Your lines should be nice and perfectly straight. Using a ruler is the best way to do that. Okay, that is what is called the histogram. We also need to draw on there a polygon, which is a line graph that goes over the top. So to do that, the first thing I do is I put a dot in the center at the top of each one of those columns. There is 2 extra dots though. One dot needs to come down to the next spot, which is why I needed that 9. Don't stretch it out ridiculously long coming way out here. It is straight down to where the next number would be. Also at the beginning, I need to have one at the start, which will be here at the origin, which is why I need that extra space there. Okay, so I need a dot here. Then you get your ruler again and you carefully join, doing a dot to dot. Oh. Separate won't let me draw it. Might have to freehand it, won't let me use my ruler. Try again. There we go, that's better. Okay, so that is what it should look like.